Welcome back to Intro to Religion 1030. We're going over Tim Bayne's book, Philosophy of Religion, a very short introduction. In this video, we are going over Exam 1, Part B, Question 3. Do you think an omnipotent God could change the laws of mathematics and morality? Why or why not? Bring in Bayne's discussion of contingent and necessary facts. Okay, so on pages 12 and 14 of Tim Bayne's book, he goes over this issue. So on page 12, he starts to talk about contingent facts, which he says contingent facts are so called because although they obtain, they might not have obtained. The fact that you are reading this book is almost certainly contingent, for there are many other things that you might have done with your time. By contrast, necessary facts are so called because there's no way that they could not have obtained. Many philosophers have held that mathematical facts are necessary. Okay, so contingent facts are things that could have been otherwise. I'm sitting here right now giving this video, but I could have been doing anything else. I could be doing laundry, I could be taking a walk. But 2 plus 2 equals 4 now. It did an hour ago. It will a million years from now. It always has. It's eternal. It's a necessary fact. You can't even imagine it not being another way. I think that's another way to help you differentiate contingent versus necessary facts. Can you imagine it being any other way? If you can, then it's contingent. If it's impossible for you to even imagine it being otherwise, then it's a necessary fact. You can imagine the sun not rising tomorrow. It would just continue to be night. And then one day, the sun won't rise. The earth could stop spinning. The sun could go nova, which is an example that Tim Bayne uses. But it would be impossible for you to imagine 2 plus 2 equaling anything other than 4. You could pretend, but you wouldn't really be able to form a concrete idea of that mathematical truth being anything other than that. So the question is, can God change the necessary facts? Let me go back and read the actual Part B, Question 3. Question, do you think an omnipotent God could change the laws of mathematics and morality? Okay, so the issue of morality is, are there absolute moral truths in the same way that there are absolute mathematical truths? And if there are, could God change them if God wanted to? So let me just read a few selections here, skipping around. On page 13 of Bayne's book, he says, theists typically take God's creative activity to encompass all contingent facts, such as those that concern the existence of badgers, ballerinas, and the Brooklyn Bridge. So their claim, I'm skipping a little bit, their claim is only that God's creative activity underpins the existence of badgers, ballerinas, and the Brooklyn Bridge, in that God is responsible for the fundamental particles that populate the physical universe and the laws that govern their behavior. And without these particles and laws, badgers, ballerinas, and bridges would not be possible. But what about those elements of reality that are necessary, such as mathematical facts? Is God also responsible for these features of reality? Many theists have thought not. Okay. I don't know which theists don't think God is responsible for those, but he mentions one theist who thinks God is responsible for mathematical truths, and that was René Descartes, a famous mathematician and theologian, 17th century theologian and inventor of the Cartesian grid, the XY coordinates of geometry. So he believed that God could make 2 plus 2 equal 5 if God wanted to. God can do anything. And that's the issue that is important for theologians and philosophers of religion. So on page 14, Tim Bayne, he summarizes this issue. He says, on the one hand, theists are typically reluctant to regard moral facts as independent of God's creative power, for they worry that adopting that position would infringe God's sovereignty. On the other hand, theists are reluctant to regard moral facts as dependent on God's creative power, for if the laws of morality depend on God, then it is presumably within God's power to alter them, just as it is presumably within God's power to alter the laws of physics. But, so the worry runs, surely the laws of morality can't be altered even by God, This challenge is known as Euthyphro's dilemma. So it comes from one of Plato's dialogues where he depicts Socrates talking to a young man named Euthyphro. And the question is, are pious things pious because the gods believe they're pious? Or do the gods believe pious things are pious because they are inherently pious? I forget exactly how he words it, but the question is moral goodness dependent on God's apparently arbitrary choice, or does even God have to bow before an eternal law of right and wrong? So that's the question here. So I'll read a little bit more here from page 14. Having considered certain aspects of the, all right, no, well, at any rate, because in short, whether morality should be included within the scope of the created order remains a disputed issue. So he is saying that it's not hard to say God is responsible for contingent facts. So the question is morality a contingent fact or a necessary fact, like the laws of mathematics? And if it is a necessary fact, if the moral laws such as thou shalt not kill are necessary, if it's impossible to envision that not being true, thou shalt not kill an innocent person without a good reason, let's say, to make it more definitive. If it's impossible for you to imagine that a situation where it is okay to kill an innocent person without any good cause, then that would seem to be a necessary moral truth. And if it is, can God change necessary truths or moral truths like mathematical truths? So I'm not going to give you the answer. Just whatever answer you come up with, show me that you are reflecting on the issues raised in the book, and then explain to me why you think that whether or not an omnipotent God could change the laws of mathematics and morality. Remember to bring in Bayne's discussion of contingent and necessary facts.